Well, good morning. I would like to take a little bit of time to go over an amplifier that's kind of mythological in nature. Behind me is a Rockman 500 stack, but I'd like to talk about the Sustainor, which is part of this setup right here. And this Sustainor is known in the Rockman world as the Rev 20. I happen to have a Rev 20. And it's a really good sounding Sustainor. As I said in other videos, in the Rockman world, revisions were constantly being made with discrete components and whatnot to really refine what the Rockman sound was. Again, it was an evolution of sound that Tom Scholes developed over many years. This particular Sustainor probably came out around 1990, 89, 90, something like that. I really don't know, and I'm not going to do that kind of homework. It's not important to me as much as it is to say it's one of the later Sustainors. This is also one of the Sustainors known as a double IC, which really is just an IC soldered on top of another IC, adding a switching circuit which created the lead leveler. Very simple circuit, but again, one of those mythological things that people think is really crazy and creepy. It's not. It was just an IC that had a switch on it, and that switch actually bypassed an LED, and that LED creates certain clipping characteristics, and that was done in earlier Sustainors, but it's also with the Rev 20 as well. So behind me, I would just like to point out some of the things I've done to my own personal Rev 20 with the same kind of spirit that Tom Scholes approached everything that he did. I made changes, things that didn't make sense to me or weren't necessary. I don't like complicated setups. I just like a good guitar sound, and the simpler the better, but I also understand why those bells and whistles are there in the beginning. First thing I'd like to do is I'd like to go down the line with this Sustainor and talk about the differences, and then also what I did. So the first thing you'll see is on a standard Sustainor, the first slider is always the preamp gain. With the Rev 20, they called it the pre-treble control. So what I did was I literally took the slider out after getting a very refined level, pre-treble, if you will, and I put in a discrete resistor. That means there's no slider anymore. It doesn't need to be a slider, because once you set it up and you know what resistance you have matching your guitar, you don't need that slider anymore. Yes, you have to be particular about things. Yes, I understand that analog electronics can shift, change a little bit, but in my world, it's fine. It sounds beautiful. The next thing you have is the compressor gain. Then you have the smart gate. And then you have your mode controls and the different aspects of your mode. You can see I took my glasses down, so I can't see. So anyway, you have gain boost, auto clean, semi clean. Those are for your distortion and your edge modes. Of course, this has got the quad mod circuit that I designed a while back, so I'm able to switch in between all 4 modes via MIDI and not just 2. So I never touch my channel switches. I don't need to. I do everything with my MIDI controller. Where things get different again is in your treble trim. Well, I know exactly what I want out of my treble trim and distortion. I know exactly what I'm looking for. So again, I took resistance readings with the original slider, figured out where that resistor was, where that slider was. I measured the resistance. I put in a discrete resistor Discrete meaning it's an actual component resistor. I removed the slider. No more adjustment, it just sounds perfect. Then I have the phase notcher. Phase notcher is out. I do not use the phase notcher live. The phase notcher is a cabinet simulator that can be used, but again, it creates issues. It creates EQing issues. It notches out the mids, and you start to have little issues here and there that can actually create a nightmare for you. My belief is leave it out, EQ your sound the way you need it to sound. Then we have our treble boost. Again, why have a slider for treble boost? If you know what that resistance is, find out what your sweet spot is, take that slider out. And again, I'm not telling people to do this. If you don't know what you're doing, for God's sake, don't take apart your Sustainor. But in my case, as an electronics technician, I know what I'm doing, I understand what I'm doing. So I removed that slider and I put in a voltage divider. That's what you call the circuit. When you remove a slider, you're actually putting in a voltage divider. So you can just really tweak in where that resistance is to give you that treble that you like. And then my rhythm volume, I also removed. I knew where I wanted my rhythm volume to be. So instead of having that little slide potentiometer that creates issues, I decided, well, I'll figure out exactly where I need that to be, and I'll put in discrete components. So I removed 1, 2, 3, 4 bells and whistles that I didn't think was necessary. Again, some people might say, oh, you're crazy, it's a Rev 20, oh my God, the world's gonna end. It's my amplifier, I'm the guitar player, I can do whatever I want, and so can you. You people that are collectors, you get a little weird sometimes with that. It's my equipment, it's my sound, so I do what I want to do. I'm not in this to collect. I'm in it to play. And I'm in this to sound as good as I can and to also teach other people about how to achieve certain things. Never accept things as they are. Always question. If after questioning it's perfect, beautiful. But never accept things for the way they are, because you are you and they are they. So always remember that. Always remember, how can I make this more tailored to what I like? Sometimes you can buy something off the shelf that does that. Perfect example is a wireless unit or something like that. Hey, this is perfect, whatever. But when it comes to really dialing in your sound, don't be afraid of making changes. It's yours. It's nobody else's. Don't worry about, being a collector. Oh my God. I've made so many changes to these amplifiers over the years. It's unbelievable. The bottom line is they're still Rockman. They're still Rockman amplifiers. And, it is what it is. The value is what it is. I'm not going to haggle about those kind of things. Don't mean to go off on a tangent about that. But anyway, so this is the Rev 20, and removing those bells and whistles just allows you to zero in on how good this Sustainor actually sounds. So just to cover a couple of things that I talked about many years ago in original videos, the Sustainor has an effects loop in it, and what I do is I take a Y adapter out of the effects send of the Sustainor. The top EQ here is for the clean section. This EQ here, the second EQ, is for edge and distortion. And the bottom EQ is what I call the conditioning EQ. That is to condition the overall sound. If you zone in, or zoom in, I should say, on this video, you can see that I roll off the high end in the cleans a lot. There is no need to shatter people's eardrums with the kind of crystal high end that the Rockman equipment can deliver. So I roll a lot of that off. You'll see the 125 hertz is a sweet spot as far as low end in these amplifiers. I do something very, very similar with edge and distortion, although I do tweak the mids a little bit more, especially in the upper ranges, and then I condition it. This amplifier to my ears sounds wonderful. Other people might hear this amp and maybe not be so sure. I never want to come across as someone that says these amplifiers are the end all. It all depends on, you know, what you like. I like them, and so I'm going to talk about them with you, and maybe you'll learn something from it, especially if you're entranced by the whole Rockman thing. Inside these cabinets, as most of you know, there's a bullet tweeter, there's a 10-inch driver, and there's a 15-inch driver. They are not 412 cabinets. I think most people know that by now, but it's important to point out. So anyway, I hope this adds a little bit of clarity to what you might already know. If you look on top of my amplifier, this is where I have a second MIDI octopus, and I actually have the chorus delay. I don't use the Rockman chorus module except on one amplifier. I've always used the chorus delay because that is where the mojo is. Although I really, I don't use chorus all the time. I don't like to sound like, as they say, I don't like to sound like Boston all the time. These amps can pretty much emulate any guitarist as far as tone that they can recreate. That being said, 50% of that is in your fingers. So you gotta understand that you know, when you play, your fingers have so much to do with how an amp sounds, with how the listener hears it. It's not just the amplifier, it's your fingers, it's the way you approach the instrument itself, it's the touch that you have, it's the gauge of strings. There is so much involved, a lot of physics and a lot of interaction between the guitar and the human body that people just don't understand. At least 50% of your sound comes from right here, from these fingers. The rest is just manipulating what this amplifier can do. I've witnessed that firsthand with other people that play through these amps. They just don't sound the same. Ted Nugent had a good story about that with Eddie Van Halen. Same thing. It was all in Eddie's fingers. A little bit was in his amp. Yeah, he had a sweet sounding amplifier and a good setup. But without his fingers, you just couldn't be Eddie. And again, without Tom Scholz's fingers, you can't be Tom Scholz. You know, there's too many things that interplay. But anyway, all of that, again, the chorus delay and the stereo echo are actually Velcroed to the top of these heads because I ran out of room. And then that all goes into the Rockman 500 amplifier, which was actually made by Carver. It's actually a Carver 175, which was a great quality full range power amp. And so they chose a good name to make their power amp. Before I go into the power amp, what I do is I take the output of my Rockman stereo echo and I go into the plus 4 dB inputs of an EBTech line level shifter. Now listen to me again for you tech guys. I'm impedance matching. Very simple. I'm impedance matching. I take the output of the Rockman stereo echo, which is the last thing in this chain, and I go into the plus 4 dB side of an EBTech line level shifter. I come out of the minus 10 dB side of the line level shifter, and I go into my power amp, with tip ring sleeve balanced cables. The line level shifter allows me to change between unbalanced and balanced cables. I'm not trying to boost my signal. I'm trying to match my signal so that I don't go into overload with my power amp. I want to make sure my power amp has a good, strong signal going in. And sometimes you have to do things that are counterintuitive to do that. So again, some of you tech guys, that's a very simple way of doing it. Of course, not everybody has a Rockman 500, and you don't have to deal with those issues. But anyway, that's just some good information for some of you to know. The Rockman modules were an animal all their own. So you had to find a way to get things to sound good. Otherwise, out of the box, trying to put together one of these amplifiers, things just didn't work the way you wanted it to work. The levels were real low. You ended up tweaking a lot and just not truly finding what you were looking for. Again, that's another reason why I eliminated bells and whistles. Also, and I'll just point it out on this amplifier, you'll notice on all my equalizers, I eliminated the drive level hot and norm switch. I don't have that here. I took that switch right out. Why? Because it's just another switch that can be inadvertently pushed. Why? If you don't need it, get rid of it. Again, when things are made and manufactured, they're made with options. But if you already know what you want, if you have pet peeves about certain things, change it. Get rid of it. You're allowed to do that. You know, if someday that EQ ends up on eBay and it doesn't have a drive hot and normal switch on it, who cares? Who cares? Someone is either going to use it or they're not going to use it. Remember, this is about playing guitar and about having a great guitar sound. This is not about trying to keep everything just perfect, just the way it comes out of the box. That's not how it works. It's not how Tom Scholz worked. It's not how Eddie Van Halen works. It's not how any of your famous guitar gods work. It just doesn't work that way. Do what you have to do, but you gotta be smart. If you don't know about electronics, study electronics. I've got 6 years under my belt via the U.S. Navy. God bless our troops. So I have military background in electronics. I also have a background in the civilian world in electronics. So you got to know what you're doing. You have to understand. Read a book, read 2 books, read 3 books. Guitar players need to be smart. It's not about just plugging in to an old Marshall Plexi and with your guitar and amp. I guess if that's what you want to do, but get creative, get curious, discover, get the soldering iron out, learn what a resistor is, what is a transformer, what is an IC chip, what's a TLO 72, what's a TLO 84. These are things that you learn a lot from. And that's how I originally started to learn about the Rockman equipment, is the modules just didn't work the way I needed them to work. Some of them didn't work at all because of factory defects. But I pulled out the soldering iron and went to work, and years later, I had this blessing all around me. But it came from hard work. Anyway, so back to the original point of this video. This is what you've got. If you've got any questions, feel free to put them in the comments. I'm sure there's lots of things that I can cover. And I'm going to do that with different amplifiers and different things that I have set up in my creative space here. And I'll do that for you. I'm just going to play a few riffs here just to see how this comes out. I really don't know how this is going to come out on a cell phone, but I'll step back and I'll just play through it, and I'll change the modes and go through some of the things with this amplifier. But anyway, I hope this dispelled a little bit more of the unknowns about the Rev 20. Again, it's a great sounding Sustainor, as are all Sustainors. All Sustainors can sound good, even the Model 100s. I did the same thing with them. So you can do a lot if you just say, you know what, I'm not going to accept that for the way it is. I know I can tweak that. I know I can do my homework on that. So I'll just go through that and then we'll call it a day. There you have it. You got any other questions? Let me know. I hope this was helpful in some way. We'll see you next time.